My name is Emily, and my story kicks off when I was 19. To any outsider, we were the picture of suburban happiness. We had the nice two-story house on a tree-lined street, the kind of place people move to for the good schools. My father, David, was a respected accountant, a man of quiet routines. My mother, Carol, was a homemaker whose entire identity was wrapped up in her family. And then there was my brother, Josh. Josh was the son our family revolved around. At 22, he was the golden child who could do no wrong, even when everything he did was, well, wrong. He was charismatic and completely allergic to responsibility, floating through his early 20s on our parents' money while flitting from one half-baked business idea to the next. I, on the other hand, was the family's invisible infrastructure. The load-bearing wall nobody notices until it's gone. I was the one with the good grades, the one who never got into trouble. I'd had a part-time job since I was 16, not for fun, but to help with the household bills Dad always seemed stressed about. When my grandmother, my mom's mom, got sick, I was the one spending weekends at her house, making her meals and keeping her company while my parents were too busy, and Josh was finding himself on a trip to Tahoe my dad paid for. After she passed, I sorted through her belongings while my mother cried for a week and then declared the subject too painful to ever bring up again. I remember this one dinner, a few weeks before my world imploded. I'd just found out I made the dean's list at my community college. I was juggling a full course load and 20 hours a week at a diner, so this felt like a huge win. I waited for a pause in the conversation and brought it up. My mom glanced up from her plate. "Oh, that's nice, dear," she said, her attention already somewhere else. My dad just grunted from behind his newspaper. Then Josh, who had just blown $10,000 of my dad's money trying to be a day trader, announced his new idea, a curated vintage t-shirt business. He went on and on about branding and profit margins, buzzwords he'd obviously just learned from a podcast. Suddenly, my parents were captivated. Dad put his paper down. "Now that sounds like a real plan, son. Takes guts to be an entrepreneur." Mom was beaming. "Oh, Josh, that's wonderful. We'll help you in any way we can." I just sat there, my own good news completely forgotten. I watched them hang on his every word. It wasn't just that they favored him, it was that his spectacular failures were more interesting to them than my quiet successes. I was reliable. I was wallpaper. And I was starting to realize that when you redecorate, the wallpaper is the first thing to go. The day it all fell apart was a Saturday. I just had a good shift at the diner and was actually feeling pretty optimistic. When I got home, the house was strangely quiet. My parents were sitting at the kitchen table, looking tense and formal. Josh was by the window, staring out into the yard with a smug, expectant look on his face. "Emily, sit down," my father said, his voice flat. It was the voice he used for delivering bad news to clients. My stomach clenched. "Is everything okay?" My mother wrung her hands, refusing to meet my gaze. "It's about Josh," she started. "He's decided to move back home for a while to get his t-shirt business off the ground. He needs a home base." I nodded, confused. "Okay, so he can have his old room back, right?" Josh finally turned around, a small, cruel smile on his face. "Actually, I need a bigger space. An office. And my old room gets terrible afternoon light." And then it hit me. A cold, sick feeling spread through my body. I looked from Josh's smug face to my mother's downcast eyes to my father's stony expression. "My room," I whispered. "It makes the most sense, Emily," my father said, "all business. It's the largest bedroom besides ours. Josh needs the space for his inventory." I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. Where am I supposed to go? My mother finally looked at me, her eyes full of a pathetic kind of pity. "Honey, you're 19. You're practically an adult. You have a job. It's time you stood on your own 2 feet. Josh needs us right now. He needs this." I repeated, my voice rising. "He needs my room? I live here. I go to school here. I help pay the bills." "Don't take that tone," my father snapped. "This is our house, and we've decided what's best for this family. Josh is our son, and he needs our support." "And what am I?" I cried, the tears finally breaking through. What am I to you? My mother started sobbing. You're just making this harder, Emily. You're being so selfish. Selfish. The word hung in the air. I had sacrificed my time, my money, and my energy for them. And I was the selfish one. It was then that I realized arguing was pointless. They had already made their decision. My role in this family was over. I'd been replaced. Love these daily stories? Like plus subscribe. You have until tomorrow afternoon to get your things, my father said, standing up to signal the meeting was over. Sarah's mom said you could stay there for a bit, he added, as if that was some act of charity. They had already called my best friend's mother before even talking to me. The humiliation was a physical heat on my skin. I walked up to my room in a daze. My room, at least for the next 24 hours. The walls were covered in photos, concert stubs, and posters. My whole life was in these 4 walls, and I had to pack it all into boxes like some guest whose stay was over. I tried to reason with them one more time. I found my dad in his study. I pleaded, reminding him about my college courses, my job. He didn't even look up from his computer. You're a resourceful girl, Emily. You'll figure it out. I went to my mother, who was dabbing her eyes in her bedroom. Mom, please. Don't do this. She just shook her head, tears streaming down her face. It's for the best. Josh is so fragile right now. Families make sacrifices for each other. My last stop was Josh. He was already in my room with a tape measure, a triumphant look in his eye. Get out, I said, my voice shaking with rage. He laughed. Relax, sis. It's just a room. Besides, I'm just speeding up the process of you moving out. You should thank me. He patted my shoulder, and the condescending arrogance was so thick I almost hit him. But what was the point? He'd already won. The next day was a blur of cardboard boxes. My best friend, Sarah, came over to help, cursing my parents under her breath as we packed. When the last box was loaded into her dad's pickup, I stood on the driveway and took one last look at the house. My mother watched from the doorway, her face a mask of sorrow. As we pulled away, I saw Josh in my bedroom window. He raised a hand in a mocking little wave. In that moment, the grief choking me hardened into something cold and sharp. Resolve. They thought they had cast me out. They thought they had broken me. But they had just given me a reason to become unbreakable. I didn't know how or when, but I knew with absolute certainty they would regret this. The first few months were hell. I was living out of suitcases on the floor of Sarah's bedroom. Her parents were saints, but I felt like a massive burden. I was a ghost haunting someone else's life. I switched to online classes, studying late at night on a borrowed laptop. I picked up a second job stocking shelves at a grocery store from midnight to 6 a.m. My life was a miserable cycle of work, study, exhaustion. Some nights I'd just sit in my car between shifts and cry. In those early days, I tried calling them. A naive part of me thought they'd come to their senses. The first time, my mother answered, her voice strained. Emily, we're busy. I told her I missed her. There was a long pause. We miss you too, honey, she said, but it sounded hollow. Listen, I have to go. Josh needs help with his website. Click. The next time, my father picked up. What is it, Emily? I tried to ask him about a financial aid form. You're on your own now, he said, not cruelly, but with a finality that was worse. You need to learn to handle these things. I stopped calling. The family I knew was gone. They had amputated me, and I had to learn to live without them. The turning point came from an unexpected act of kindness. My manager at the grocery store, a quiet man named Mr. Henderson, had been watching me. He'd seen me come in exhausted and pore over textbooks on my break. One morning, he called me into his office. Emily, he said, I've been watching you. You work hard, you're smart, and you're going to burn yourself out. I thought he was about to fire me. I started to apologize, but he held up a hand. This isn't a reprimand, he said. It's an offer. Our assistant manager for the night shift just quit. The pay is better, it has benefits, and it's salaried. It means you could quit the diner and actually get some sleep. The job is yours if you want it. I just stared at him, stunned. For the first time since I'd left my parents' house, someone saw potential in me, not a problem. Someone was offering me a hand up. Yes, I said, the word coming out as a choked sob. Yes, thank you. That job was the first rung on a ladder I didn't even know I was climbing. It gave me stability. It gave me enough money to get a small studio apartment with a roommate. It was tiny, but it was mine. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was starting to build. About 6 months after I'd been kicked out, I needed a certified copy of my birth certificate for a scholarship application. I knew exactly where it was, in the metal file box in my dad's home office, where he kept all the important documents. The thought of going back there made me feel sick. I called Sarah. I have to go back, I told her. No way are you going alone, she said. We'll go on Thursday. Your parents have bridge club then. In and out. That Thursday, we snuck into the quiet, dusty house using the spare key I'd never returned. It felt neglected. I crept into my dad's office, and sure enough, the file box was under his desk. I found my birth certificate, but as I put the file back, my fingers brushed against a small, wooden lockbox I'd never seen before. It was unlocked. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside, I found a thick envelope with my grandmother's spidery handwriting on it. It said, "For Emily." My heart started pounding. Inside was a legal document, a will. But I'd seen my grandmother's will. The one my father showed us left a little money to me and Josh, and the house to my mother. This one was different. It was dated a week after the one my father had filed with the court. It was her real will. I sank to the floor. In this version, my grandmother had created a separate, irrevocable trust. The primary asset of that trust was the house, our house, and a stock portfolio worth nearly $500,000. My grandmother had seen our family dynamic perfectly. The terms of the trust were crystal clear. The money was to be managed by my father, as trustee, for my benefit. He and my mother could live in the house, rent-free, and use the stock dividends for living expenses under one single, unbreakable condition, that they provide me with a home and support until I turned 25. At that point, the entire trust, the house and all the money, would become mine. If that condition was ever violated, if I was ever forced out against my will, the trusteeship would be breached, and full control of the trust would immediately pass to me. I read the clause 3 times. The house they kicked me out of was mine. The money they were living on, the money they'd used to fund Josh's failures, was mine. They hadn't just thrown me out. They had thrown me out of my own house, using my own inheritance to do it. And the darkest part? My father, the respected accountant, had committed fraud. He hid the real will, filed a fake one, and stole my entire future. Also, he could keep funding his perfect golden son. I put the documents in my bag, my mind a storm of shock, rage, and a terrifyingly cold sense of purpose. This wasn't just about being replaced. This was a crime. And they were going to pay for it. I walked out of that house a different person. The heartbroken girl was gone, replaced by a woman with a mission. My first instinct was to storm back in and scream, but a colder part of me took over. They were methodical in their betrayal, I would be methodical in my justice. Sarah helped me find a legal aid lawyer, Ms. Albright, a shark in probate court. I laid out the documents in her office and told her everything. She listened, then examined the papers. After a long silence, she looked up with the slightest hint of a smile. "Oh honey," she said, her voice dripping with victory. "They didn't just breach the contract. They blew it up with dynamite." She confirmed it all. The fraud was blatant. But she advised me to wait. "Your father's an accountant," she said. "A direct confrontation will give him time to hide assets. We need to build an airtight case before he even knows we're coming." So began my year of preparation. While Ms. Albright's team gathered evidence, I focused on building my own life. I finished my associate's degree with honors. Mr. Henderson promoted me again, this time to a junior role at the corporate office. I was making a real salary. I moved into my own apartment. No roommate. It was small, but it was my sanctuary. For the first time, I felt truly independent. I cut off all contact with my family. Through the grapevine, I heard things weren't going well at home. Josh's t-shirt business had predictably tanked. He was now living on the couch, contributing nothing. The house was falling apart. The financial strain was showing. They'd had to sell my mother's car. They missed my income. They missed the free labor. I watched from a distance and felt nothing. No pity. A year to the day after they kicked me out, Ms. Albright called. "We're ready," she said. "We have him, Emily. Dead to rights. All we have to do now is spring the trap." It was time. As if on cue, my phone rang 2 days later. "Mom." I let it ring 3 times, then answered, my voice deliberately calm. "Hello. Emily? Oh honey, it's you." Her voice was a syrupy mix of fake cheer and raw desperation. "Darling, it's been far too long. How are you?" "I'm fine, Mom," I said, giving nothing away. "We miss you so much," she went on, her voice cracking with phony emotion. "The house is so quiet. We were wrong, Emily. Your father and we made a terrible mistake. We want you to come home." I almost laughed. It was so pathetic. They didn't miss me. They missed my help. They missed my money. "We're having a big family dinner on Sunday," she chirped. "A reunion to celebrate you coming home. I'll make your favorite pot roast." A reunion. The nerve was breathtaking. But it was the perfect stage. "Okay," I said after a long pause. "I'll be there." "Oh, wonderful," she cried, flooded with relief. "We can't wait to have our family back together." She hung up, thinking she had won. She thought I was the same forgiving girl they had thrown away. She had no idea I was coming home to declare war. On Sunday evening, I drove to my house. I was no longer a scared teenager. I was a 20-year-old woman in a car I'd paid for myself, with a folder full of their doom on the passenger seat. I walked in without knocking. The 3 of them were in the living room with fake smiles plastered on their faces. The house smelled of pot roast and desperation. Up close, the decay was obvious. A water stain on the ceiling, a dirty carpet. "Emily!" My mother cried, rushing to hug me. I stood stiff as a board. My father looked guilty. Josh just gave me a nod from the couch. They led me to the dining table, set with the good china in a grotesque parody of a happy family. They launched right into their script. "Emily, we are so sorry," my mother began, tears welling up on cue. "It was a mistake," my father added. "A terrible mistake. This is your home. You always have a place here." I let them talk, spinning their web of fake remorse. I listened as they told me how much they missed me. I watched Josh, sullen and silent, picking at the tablecloth. When they finally ran out of gas, they waited, expecting me to cry and forgive them. I didn't. Instead, I reached into my handbag, pulled out the thick folder Ms. Albright had given me, and placed it on the table with a soft thud that echoed in the room. "What's that?" my mother asked. "That," I said, my voice cold as ice, "is the truth." I opened it and slid a copy of my grandmother's real will across the table to my father. "Recognize this?" He went white. Where did you get this?" "I found it," I said. "In your office. The real one. Not the forgery you filed with the court." My mother gasped. "David? What is she talking about?" I didn't let him answer. I pulled out the trust agreement. "Grandma was smarter than you gave her credit for. She knew you would always choose him over me," I said, nodding at Josh. "So she protected me. She put the house, and a lot of money, in a trust. For me." Josh was finally paying attention, his jaw slack. "The terms were simple," I continued. "You could live here and use the money, as long as you provided me with a home. The moment you kicked me out, you violated the trust." My mother was shaking her head, whispering, "No, no, no." "You kicked me out of my house," I said, my voice rising. You took my inheritance and poured it into his bottomless pit of failures. I pulled out the bank statements, page after page of highlighted transfers to Josh. This isn't upkeep, Dad. This is fraud. Embezzlement. It's a felony. Silence. My father looked like he'd aged 20 years in 20 minutes. My lawyer filed an emergency injunction yesterday morning, I announced. As of right now, all trust accounts are frozen. The money is gone. My mother let out a strangled sob. Emily, please, she begged. You can't do this to us. We're your family. You stopped being my family the day you put me on the street, I shot back. And now for part 2. I slid another document across the table. An eviction notice. As per the trust, when you breached your duties, full control transferred to me. This house is now legally mine. You have 30 days to vacate. Emily. Don't, my father whispered. You'll ruin us. You ruined yourselves, I said, standing up. You made your choice a year ago. You chose the golden child. You chose lies. Now you get to live with the consequences. The begging started. It was ugly. My mother was crying hysterically, grabbing at my arm. We're sorry. Please don't take our home. My father just sat there, broken. I finally turned to my brother, who was watching in stunned disbelief. You, I said, pointing at him. You got everything you ever wanted. You got my room, my money, my parents' attention. You're the golden child. Let's see how you support them now. Let's see how golden you are when the gold is gone. He just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. I shook my mother's hand off my arm. You have 30 days, I repeated. I suggest you start packing. I walked out of the dining room and didn't look back. The sound of their world collapsing behind me was more than enough. I walked out of that house for the last time. But this time, I wasn't a victim. I was the owner. And I was free. I never spoke to them again. MS. Albright handled everything. They moved out on the 29th day, leaving the place a mess in a final petty act of defiance. I never set foot in it again. I had it cleaned and sold it within a month. With the money from the trust and the sale of the house, my money, I finished my bachelor's degree in business, completely debt-free. I even started my own small consulting firm. I'm successful now, and I'm happy. I have a life I built myself, on my own terms. My former family, from what I hear, isn't doing so well. They had to move into a cramped apartment across town. My father's reputation was destroyed. My mother is a shadow of her former self. And Josh? He works at a car wash. They're all dependent on his minimum wage income. They wanted to know what it felt like to have a child who was a burden. Now they know. They just picked the wrong one. I didn't get a family back, but I don't think I ever really had one. I got something much better. I got justice. And I got myself back. So, what do you think? Did I go too far, or did they get exactly what they deserved? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy stories about justice being served, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for listening.